Good evening to viewers in the United Kingdom and also evening to viewers in Georgia. And
good evening.
Good morning and good afternoon to viewers elsewhere in the world. Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. Tonight, I'm deeply honored to be joined by Bishop Malkhaz Songulashvili from Tbilisi, Georgia, a Georgian Baptist bishop, theologian, translator, humanitarian, and founder of the Peace Cathedral in Tbilisi. And also, I'm honored to call him a friend.
We are friends.
Born and raised during the Soviet era, Bishop Malkhaz has spent much of his life navigating complex intersections of faith, freedom, identity, and reconciliation in a region shaped by political turmoil, upheaval, conflict, and profound cultural change. Over the years, he has become internationally known not only for his leadership within the Evangelical Baptist Church of Georgia, but also for his remarkable commitment to multi-faith dialogue, humanitarian work, religious freedom, and peace building. His Peace Cathedral in Tbilisi has become a symbol of hospitality and coexistence, bringing together people of different faiths and backgrounds in a spirit of dignity and mutual respect. Tonight, we'll be exploring his life journey, Soviet and post-Soviet Georgia, faith and identity, multi-faith dialogue, the search for peace in divided societies, and some of the deeper spiritual and moral questions facing our world today. Bishop Malkhaz, thank you so much for joining me. It's truly an honor to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Honor is all mine, and delighted to be with you and to speak to your people.
Awesome. What was it like growing up as a Baptist Christian in Soviet Georgia?
It was not pleasant because at school, at university, even at the kindergarten, you'd be sidelined as being a part of religious family. When I was born in early 60s, at that time, Soviet Union had decided to eliminate religion. And when I was still very young, a baby, the state wanted to take me out of my home and raise me in at an institution in spirit of Soviet ideology. But in Georgia, my father had connections. He was a clergyman, and he managed to keep me at home. So from a very early age, I realized that in the class, I was different. My family was different. Speaking of the religion was not acceptable at all. And therefore, I felt sidelined many times, and I grew up as a dissident from early age.
Must have been very difficult. I mean, I think this is the thing that people here and in some of the countries where we are very fortunate to have a lot of freedom don't necessarily realize. I mean, here you can be any religion, any belief, any ethnicity. And yeah, it's not perfect. I mean, I know there are issues, but it's not like that. How aware were you as a child that your family's faith placed you outside the ideological mainstream?
Well, my father was a minister in the church. My grandmother was also a devout Christian and sort of lay preacher. And obviously, in my early age, I did not appreciate that at all. I was embarrassed to come from a religious family because everybody was against you, the state, school, ideology, and you could not go to the university if you belonged to a religion. So, but only later on I realized the value, which I am still, for which I am still grateful, that my parents and my grandma in particular gave me religious upbringing that has been essential and instrumental to cope with a number of challenges in my life.
So, with all that difficulty, what did faith mean to you when you were younger? Because gosh, that must be really difficult.
Faith was, well, I was raised by my grandmother, who was a very devout Christian, and she knew the entire New Testament by heart. And she, as I grew, she told me stories from what Christians call Old Testament Hebrew stories, etc., of Joseph and Jacob and others. So I realized the beauty of this religion as these narratives. And then very soon I realized that these narratives were in conflict with the ideology. And some things that helped me to make choice on the side of religion and faith was that very soon I realized that the communist ideology was a fake. Nobody really believed in it. Everybody pretended to be devout communists, but nobody really believed it. And I did not want to be associated with something that was superficial and fakey. And then I realized that my grandmother's faith was very deep and important for her and for the family. And I was 17 years old when I finally made decisions for religion and for faith that came from my family.
Is this where you kind of like your appreciation for freedom and human dignity began?
Indeed, that family where I grew up created a sort of oasis where we could be ourselves, um, protected from the ideological influences, and that was where I also managed to meet people in my family. My father was a very magnanimous person. He was friends with many people in the region, and very often we had friends from North Caucasus, Muslims and Jews and others who came to my family. So that my family became a sort of school where I could learn and appreciate diversity, religious, cultural, um, the, um, the social and educational as well.
And of course, I mean, Georgia, it's in a very interesting region. For those who don't know, Georgia is south of Russia. It's next to countries like Azerbaijan, not too far from the Middle East, but also close to Turkey as well. So
Indeed.
it's in a very interesting region. And of course, you have Saint George also as your patron saint, don't you? Which is interesting because it's
Yeah,
something that we share
with
because we
England,
adopted
yes.
Saint George as our patron saint in Britain, but in England. But
Yeah.
it's like St. George, of course, came from that region. And it has a long, George has long been at the crossroads of different civilizations and cultures and has a rich tapestry of these things. So it's quite tragic when you had authoritarianism and communism and stuff put into that. Would you like to say a little bit about Georgia's cultural heritage and diversity?
Yeah. Well, Georgia, as you mentioned, has always been on the crossroads of various civilizations. It's one of the oldest Christian countries in the world. Christianity became a part of our life as early fourth century. However, we were enriched by our encounters with neighboring cultures, with Persian culture and later on Ottoman culture, Greek and Byzantine and Northern Caucasian. So we were always interacting with this variety of cultures. And it is true, we are very close to the Middle East. If I start early morning from my place and drive, say if I start at 6 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, I will be at the river Euphrates. Then you realize how close you are to the cradle of human civilization. to the Mesopotamian cultures and traditions. So history has been long and deep and diverse and challenging. And by the 18th century, Georgia realized that they needed some allies, stronger allies. So they decided that possibly the co-religionist Russia would be the good ally. Being a small country, you are always looking for allies. Russia being Christian like Georgia was, and Orthodox like Georgia. So they were all parameters seemed promising. And in 1783, our king Iraklis II signed an agreement of friendship with the Russian Empire. The problem was that Russian understanding of friendship was totally different from that of Georgian. Soon after the death of Iraklis' son, Russian troops occupied Georgia, made the Georgian royal family to abdicate, made the Georgian Orthodox Church to give up its independence, and become a part of a Russian Empire, a colony, where Georgian language was prohibited. Liturgy had to be in Russian or Church Slavonic, and imperial forces were orchestrating development of the culture. And then there was a Russian Revolution, 1917, and soon after the revolution, Georgia got its independence. And immediately we started building a democratic country. Perhaps if you look at the constitution we produced in 1920, you will see how progressive our political elite was about the human rights, about religious rights, about participation into the democratic process. But very soon, the life of the independent Georgia was short-lived because the country was occupied again. But this time, it was occupied owing to participation and involvement, even inspiration, by those Georgians who were in power at the Kremlin. So that was Stalin and Orjonikidze, Mdivani, and others who grabbed the power at the Kremlin soon after the deaths of Lenin, and Georgia was occupied again, this time by Russian Soviet Empire, led by fellow Georgians who could not let their country stay outside of the Soviet Union, which would make them foreigners in the Soviet Union. And therefore, they incorporated their homeland into the Soviet Empire. And that time was also very painful. For 75 years, Georgia had been under the Soviet rule. During the World War II, we lost far more people, percentage-wise, than Britain and United Kingdom together. So it was a massacre of Georgian population. If you can imagine, we were less than 4 million people by the World War II, and 700,000 people were recruited.
My goodness.
So it was a genocide of people, and most of them have not come back because they had no proper training in military affairs. But Stalin wanted to show the rest of the Soviet Union that he would not spare his own people, Georgians. And then independence came, and we started building up democracy until very recently. In fact, the war in Ukraine triggered Georgian government to choose policy of appeasement to Russian Empire, Russian Federation, because they could not possibly believe that Ukraine could withstand Russian aggression for more than a week. But but owing to that, our political orientation has been changed, and Georgia has been now protesting almost for 600 days, 600 consecutive days. Every day, people walk out in protest of rigged elections and also political repressions that has been imposed by the government.
My goodness, I haven't heard much of what has been happening in Georgia for some time. So, gosh, I didn't realize things had got that bad. I
Yeah.
mean, I also didn't realize that, because I knew obviously during the Soviet era, Georgia, like a lot of countries, was subject to that authoritarian and oppressive regime. But I had no idea this actually went back so far, even before the communist period.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. It's a long-suffering country, but I would like to believe that it has a future, and future lies in democratic development of the country, and it can play a key role in bridge building between East and West. It's very conveniently located on the geopolitical center of the area. And culture, I also believe that Georgian culture can really make contribution to understanding of the East, and East-West relations can be influenced by the Georgian participation. We managed to develop the culture, Georgian culture, in deep partnership with Persian culture and later on with Ottoman culture. And we know how it works, and we have got so much connections with them. And it will be a shame not to use these connections and these experiences um, in the bridge building as well as in a dialogue between West and East, between civilizations, that is so important now.
Very true. And also, I mean, you're a Baptist bishop, but you have connections with the Orthodox Christianity as well, don't you?
Yes,
And
indeed.
it's the Orthodox Christianity is interesting because it's quite a unique and also older tradition than what we have in the West. And its interactions with Muslim countries was often different to the interactions the Christian countries and churches in the West often had with Muslim countries. So, would you like to say a little bit about that difference?
Well, the Orthodox churches have been living along with Muslim faithful for centuries now.
Mm.
Uh, After the Constantine, after the first council, Christian council in 325, the pentarchy of 5 churches was established. And that was a church in Alexandria, Church of Jerusalem, Church of Antioch, and Church of Constantinople, Church of Rome. And out of this pentarchy, 4 of them happen to be a part of Muslim nations now.
Mm.
So majority of Christian leading countries have become a part of Muslim cultural and political development. And therefore, they had to learn how to cooperate with Muslims. And we've got cases in Syria, in Turkey, in Iraq, when Christians and Muslims have been living in villages together for centuries, living peacefully, sharing their lives together, sharing their experiences together. And we have also have some cases, historical cases recorded when Muslims would take their children to church for education, and sometimes Christians would take their their kids to Muslim clerics for prayer. So there was deep spiritual encounter and exchange in the Middle East until Western colonialism came in and ruined these relations that had been deep and beautiful. And I think it is a challenge for our time, our civilization, to rebuild these relations that were so wonderful, so enriching and inspiring in many respects.
And this is something which you personally have been involved in for some years, isn't it? Because, of course, where we first met was actually at a human rights conference
Yeah,
at Karbala in Iraq.
indeed.
And I saw you there, and I was a bit surprised initially because I saw you, and it was mostly Muslim scholars that were invited.
Yeah,
And I saw you also with your tasbih, doing your
yeah,
Christian litany. And yeah, but that's how we met. So,
yeah.
would you like to say a little bit about the work that you've been doing over the years to uh, improve this understanding between
Yeah.
Muslims and Christians?
Well, as I told you, my father was very religiously, he was very conservative, but
Mm.
socially, he was very progressive. So my family was always a place where people from different traditions came. So this is what I had from my family. And as I grew up, I realized the beauty and significance of engaging with Islam at the deepest possible way. The conservative church I was a part of, and many other Protestant churches in the region and beyond, had this theology of proselytizing. So whenever you come across, according to which, whenever you come across of people of different faiths, your instinct is to convert them to Christianity, to Baptist faith or whatever, evangelical faith. But our church uh, fostered a shift in this direction, and that our church has insisted that instead of thinking how to convert others into Christianity, we should convert ourselves into friendship and love and engagement with people of different faiths to learn from their spiritual experience and enrich our spirituality from that. And that was something that took me to Karbala and took me to Najaf and took me to um, Mecca and Medina because I find these experiences deeply enriching. And I always wish that other Christians could also experience such exposure to the deep spirituality that has been developed by Muslim brothers and sisters. And I think something that has been immensely valuable for me was the Arbaing pilgrimage in Iraq, walking from Najaf to Karbala. And as you walk, you meet a lot of people, and you're everybody, you're recognizable as a Christian. Yeah, I'm dressed up as a Christian, and I'm welcome who I am, and hosted most beautifully. And I always wish that others could also experience this beauty of fellowship with people with such a deep spiritual experiences and longing for God. And I
Mm.
think by my encounters with Muslims, by um, my studies in of the Quran and Islamic spirituality and philosophy and tradition, my spirituality has been deeply, hugely enriched, and I'm immensely grateful for that. I don't think I'm a lesser Christian. I'm more Christian, um, owing to the experiences that was a gift for me by encountering Muslim spirituality in the Middle East and elsewhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of it as an unchristian thing. Far from it. I'd consider it as a very Christian thing to do. I mean, especially, I mean, if we look at the example of Christ, peace be upon him, he was someone who he spent time with all sorts of people and engaged with all sorts of people. When he visited the Samaritan woman by the well, and
Indeed.
you know, some of the Jewish people at the time asked, "Why are you doing this?" Because you know, you're our Messiah, basically. But they did. Some of the people they didn't get it at the time. But he led by example in this respect, and also even the parable of the Good Samaritan. And a lot of people don't get that now because they hear
Yeah.
about this parable. They don't realize that the Samaritans and the Jews were really at odds at that time. They were completely different nations. And even though spiritually they come from the same root, but they branched off a long time beforehand. And so when Jesus, peace be upon him, was talking about this Good Samaritan, they were like, what on earth are you on about? Because we don't know any Good Samaritans. I mean, people don't understand this, do they? I mean, this is why it's very important to, whichever book you read, whether you read the Bible or the Quran, to understand the context behind the messages in there. And I think this creates a lot of problems that people are reading these books with 21st century eyes, and they don't understand what he's talking about.
No. You don't understand half of it if you look from the 21st century eyes, because context is essential to understand the word of God and to understand the scriptures in general. Indeed. Yeah.
And did this lead to your development of the Peace Cathedral in Tbilisi? Because, I mean, this has become something that has become quite well known, actually. I mean, the people have told me about this. And when I said I was going to do this podcast with you, they said, you must talk to him about the Peace Cathedral and visit if you can. So would you like to tell us a bit about that and where the vision came from for this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I should start by extending cordial invitation to you to come and visit us at the Peace Cathedral. It's overdue. We need to have you here in Georgia at your earliest convenience. The Peace Cathedral came into being as a further development of our interfaith commitment and also development of our theological thinking. Our church, the Georgian Baptist Church, is an amalgamation of Orthodox aesthetics, theology, and also some principles of European radical reformation. So this is amalgamation of two different Christian traditions. And we have been in the country for 160 years as a church. And there was no time when we are not either persecuted or suppressed one way or another, either by the Tsarist regime or then communists and Bolsheviks and you name it. So in order to survive, the church developed theology of beauty. And whenever we were confronted by ugliness of hatred and persecution and violence, the church would respond to it with a project of beauty. And it would have been either aesthetic, literary, liturgical, musical, artistic response to the ugliness. And recently, we have seen the rise of Islamophobia in Georgia. We've got 12% of population of Georgia is Muslim. And we have seen the incredible rise of Islamophobia encouraged both by the churches, excuse me, and also by political forces. So much so that Muslims were not allowed to pray on Friday, and there were cases when the mosques were pulled down or desecrated. There was a case in Georgia in 2011 when a military police raided a Muslim village on the Black Sea and start checking if the people all the people, villagers, if the people would not have a cross on their chest, they were physically abused, and it was outrageous. And that time I felt so helpless, and I believe that we had to do something to show solidarity with Muslims. So since then, I make public statement that as long as people are humiliated in Georgia for not wearing a cross, I will not wear a cross in Georgia any longer. So when I'm in the country, when I travel, I wear a cross, as Episcopal pictorial cross. But when I'm in the country, I never wear a cross. It's to show solidarity to my Muslim brothers and sisters who have been humiliating that for not having cross on their chest, as it were. So we had to respond to this ugliness of Islamophobia. And then soon after that, we saw also rise of anti-Semitism. Georgia had always been bragging for being the only country in the world where Jews were not persecuted. However, for last 10 years, 20 years, we have seen the rise of anti-Semitism. Jewish population, when I was growing in the town of Tbilisi, we had about 45,000 Jews. And now a number has shrunk to 2,000. So the Jewish population is declining and anti-Semitism is on rise, which does not really make sense at all. So this is how the idea came to be. We believe that we live in this world. All of us are obsessed with making statements, and we saw that making statement against Islamophobia or anti-Semitism was not good enough any longer. We had to do something tangible.
Yeah.
And this is how we decided to create space under the roof of the Peace Cathedral, one for the mosque, we call it Masjid al-Salam, and one for the synagogue, Bet Knesset HaShalom, Peace Synagogue. And obviously we are a small country and a small church. We had to raise funds. We had no funds for developing these spaces. To make our lives more miserable than it was, we introduced the principle that Muslims should not be allowed to make financial contribution to the mosque. They could contribute to the synagogue. And Jews should not be allowed to make contribution to synagogue, but they could contribute to the mosque.
It's really creative. I like that.
It slowed down fundraising. However, it became educational experience, pedagogical, if you like. We had a case when Israeli ambassador learned that for the first time in century, we were building a synagogue in Georgia, in Tbilisi. So he came, inspected the construction, and told that the embassy was keen to make donation to the synagogue. And we had to say, no, sir, you can't do that. Jews are not allowed to make contribution to the synagogue. 6 months later, he wrote back to me saying that he received approval from his superiors from the Foreign Office, so he could make contribution to the mosque. So we had some ayatollahs making contribution to the synagogue under the conditions that I should take their names to my grave. So this has been fascinating experience to see longing
I think
of
that
people.
there's something that the rest of us can certainly learn from in that example.
I think it was one of the best projects I have ever carried out in my life, and I learned so much, and it has become so wonderful. So no, believe it or not, these full-fledged mosque and synagogue are functioning now. Both places are open to any kind of Jews or any kind of Muslims, to Shias and Sunnis and Sufis and whomever. And this is something that I find rather remarkable. In the town, Tbilisi, it's old town, and I hope sometime soon I'll be able to host you in Tbilisi and show things around. In the
I would
old
love that.
town,
Yeah.
we have got mosque and synagogues and mosques, etc. But when people come to the Peace Cathedral, when Muslims come to pray, they always ask, if they are for the first time, can we see the synagogue? And they go and see the synagogue. And when Jews are bringing their friends, they are also asking whether they can see the mosque. And most of the time, it is the first time they are stepping into the mosque or into the synagogue. Not because there are no synagogues in the town, but they do not feel safe there. But under the roof of the Peace Cathedral, they feel safe to go and explore both mosque and synagogue. And it has become, even if we do not do anything to promote dialogue, these places are also already witnessing a possibility of living together and visiting each other and enriching our spiritualities. The place is very small. When you come, you see, when Jews have high holidays, they come with families, and they bring children, and children sometimes become nuisance when parents are praying. And what the parents do, Jewish parents, they take these children and dump into the mosque, where the children are playing happily as their parents are praying. So we have seen these beacons of hope at the Peace Cathedral, and we have seen this project has survived challenges like October the 7th, or Armenian and Azeri wars and wars in Ukraine, etc. So that makes me optimistic about the future of cooperation and partnership.
I pray it goes from strength to strength. I mean, this is amazing, and may Allah reward you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And you've also been involved in humanitarian efforts as well, haven't you, over the years?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yes. Well, perhaps I should start by saying that when we were growing in my family or in my church, it was forbidden for religious groups to participate in any relief work. The
Really?
church was prohibited to help the poor because it was a socialist state, and the state was allegedly responsible for looking after the poor and needy. So the church had what they called Lord's money, secretive fund. Only very trustful members of the community could make contribution to it, and a very few people we are responsible for helping poor in the most secretive way. So our church did not have huge experience of involvement into the relief work during the Soviet time. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was a Russo-Chechenian war. And as a result of this war, we had influx of Chechen refugees, thousands of them. Them being Muslims, and they've had rather bad reputation in Caucasus, because for centuries they lived in the highlands, in Rocky Mountains. They had very poor economy, and the economies they developed was kidnapping. So they would come to Georgia, and neighboring countries would kidnap young lads and ladies and take them to Istanbul market to sell as slaves and make the budget. So for centuries, Georgians developed grudge against Chechens. And when the war happened, the only country they could flee was Georgia. It's a landlocked country, as you know.
Yeah.
So when they came to Georgia, nobody wanted to help. And they were settled in one gorge. It was before Christmas, they started to come through the Caucasian mountains and snow-capped mountains. And we were preparing for Christmas. It was Advent season. And a lady came, a writer, and told us that Chechens were crossing the borders, and they had no food and no clothing, no medicine. And she told us that she had been going around asking various religious communities to help, and nobody wanted to do anything. And we said, okay, let us go once and visit them and deliver what we can. So we went together with my colleagues from the church to the refugee camp and spent a day among the refugees. And I can still remember the feeling as we drove to this. It was in 120 kilometers from the capital city. Um, the tension we had in the car as we drove to the direction, we didn't know what to expect. We were going to meet our traditional enemies, as it were. So when we spent the day there, we listened to them, and old and young, etc. We saw their tears and their suffering. And when we were leaving the camp, out of sheer politeness, we said, if we can do anything, to please do not hesitate to ask. And they immediately produced 10 pages of shopping list, what they needed. So we needed medicine and binding materials because they said there were some wounded children there in the camp. Um, um, so when we calculated, we needed $500 to buy all the medicine and tea and other items they needed, binding materials. It was in the late 90s, and the church was struggling, and the country was struggling with the poverty. And $500 was enormous amount of money. So I went to the church accountant, and she said, "We have no money. We can't do that." And I did my first fundraising effort. Wrote a letter and sent to all people I knew around the globe, saying that I need $500, not for my church, not for my congregation, but for traditional enemies of my country. That was Thursday when I wrote the letter. On Friday, I went to my office and opened my email account and found out there was a pledge for $15,000.
Wow.
Within a month, we had 50,000. Within a year, we had almost $500,000. We wanted to help, but not that much. But what do you do when you have this huge amount of money? I never raised that much money, neither before and after. So it was a sign
God
from
obviously
God.
wanted you to help them more.
Yeah. So we started in their shoes, as it were, what would be the best for them. And we found ourselves engaged in relief work for next 5 years, developing schooling system, medical system, aid and support for elderly and children and women, etc., etc. So that engagement with the Chechen refugees has dramatically changed our understanding of being a religious community, and something that I'm very proud of. Um, we never used resources to try to entice anybody to become a Christian. So I was often asked by my fellow evangelical friends how many Bibles or evangelistic leaflets we distributed among the refugees for 5 years, and I had to say zero. We have not developed the distributed anything, but I think we distributed more than the Bibles and leaflets. We distributed our love and acceptance, and we thought that was far more important than distributing these leaflets. And among those refugees, there was a general, field general from the from Johar Dudaev army. And once he said, when we get Chechnya back and Chechnya is independent, we are going to build 25 Baptist churches in Grozny, their capital city. As there are not 25 Christians in Chechnya, let alone Grozny.
Yeah.
But that was their way to say that, to show their gratitude of being friends and brothers. And my
Did
house,
they build any afterwards?
no, they've not never get back to the country
Right.
yet. They are still in exile. The
So how is
government.
that community now, if they're still in Georgia?
Most of them have left for third countries.
Mm.
Some went to Turkey, some went to Azerbaijan, some managed to get to Sweden. Quite a few of them managed to get to Sweden, and occasionally I still hear from them. So the children we raised, we helped to raise in the camp are now they are university students in different parts of the world. So that was fascinating experience. Well, my home in Tbilisi, and I hope you'll visit me at my place, became a shelter for refugees. Sometimes 5, 6, 10 people would come and stay overnight. And I had a room set aside for their prayer. And then after the prayer, we would sit almost all night speaking also about various matters. So we became very close friends. And I think the encounters with Chechens has changed not only me, but entire community. We learned how to serve and how to serve without hidden agendas. And I think that was one of the best gifts we have ever got as a congregation and as a community.
That's amazing. And it's one of those things that there is a tendency with religious groups when they give aid, they tend to tie it to, trying to convert people.
Indeed.
And you get Muslim groups that do the same thing, unfortunately. Um, and the thing is, I'm a Muslim, I believe in my faith. I've got nothing against promoting it. I mean, I do myself, but not in that way. If I'm helping someone, I don't at the same time simultaneously try to, convert them, because that's
Yeah.
just, it's not actually living up to the ethics of my faith. And I think this is something that a lot of people, whichever religion they have, don't seem to understand. And of course, in a way, you are promoting your faith anyway, just by giving a lived example of what you're
Yeah,
supposed to be doing.
indeed.
And that's showing what true Christianity is supposed to be. Or conversely, if it was Muslims doing the same effort, that speaks. My dad actually said this: actions speak louder than words.
Mm,
And people might not read those Bibles, or they might not read Qurans if a Muslim group
yeah.
is there, or the leaflets. But if you're helping them, they see that action, they see that love, they see that kindness and support. They feel it. They feel the effects of it. They know how their life has been transformed through it. You don't have to preach to them. And if they have an inclination towards that and it inspires them, they may well choose that path. But it's not because you're pushing religion. And that's a far more beautiful way to go about it.
Something that I find totally immoral, to use somebody's vulnerability
Mm.
to undermine their faith, something that is important and beautiful for
Mm.
them. I went several times to refugee camps in Iraq, where people from Sinjar Mountains have been congregating for 10 years, almost 10 years now, living in despicable conditions, in tents, where it is unbearably hot in summer and unbearably cold in winter. And I went there and I met the refugees, and when they learned that I was a Christian, they got scared. And then I started to talk to them, and I had some Yazidi clergy along with them. And I explained to them that I had no intention to undermine their faith. And they opened up and said that there have been some Christians coming from USA and Europe, bringing money and providing some services, psychological and other services, and help to the deeply traumatized people, and at the same time trying to convert them. And they said, we love our religion, and if you want to help us, don't try to take from us something that is so valuable for us. So these stories stays with me in all my time, all the time, because it seems so unfair to use these vulnerable people who had been through terrible traumatizing experiences, and then undermine something that is most valuable for them.
I
And I
agree. And
think
I think it's something that these people that do that, they don't think, well, I could be in their shoes. How would I like that? If I am faithful and I love my faith, why would I want that to happen to me? I mean, it's the golden rule that both of our faiths teach us. You know, treat others how you would like to be treated, and don't treat others how you don't want to be treated.
exactly.
And it's one of those things. It's like, even though I mean, even outside of this, even though I promote Islam and I teach about Islam, and I'm not talking about when I'm talking to vulnerable people, I just mean like putting the videos I put online and articles and things. But I try not to be preachy. You know,
Yeah.
it's like just educational and answering
Yeah.
questions, and let people know the door's always open. If you're
Yeah.
interested, the door's always open. If you're happy where you are, I'm happy for you. May God bless you.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you know, having that kind of appreciation. And well, a lot of people don't realize, even the Prophet Muhammad himself, he had friends who were Jewish, friends who were
Yeah.
Christian,
Yeah.
people who didn't convert,
Yeah.
and he never pushed them that they had to
Yeah.
convert. You know, it's they had conversations, they had
Yeah.
discussions, but if they stayed where they were, he accepted it, he left it, he didn't keep pushing them. You know.
He did not even try to convert his own uncle.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Well, even people don't understand with Arabic,
Yeah.
the Arabic word dawah, it's
Yeah.
not supposed to be like this kind of missionary kind of word that, you know, you see like some Protestants have. It's supposed to be an invitation. So
Yeah.
it's like if you have a meal at your house, you will give dawah to come to your house. Now, if people don't want to come or they've got another appointment, you don't say you must come to my house, otherwise you're going to burn in hell.
Yeah.
You know, it's well, they don't get it. It's just you give it.
What an
It's like, even in
invitation.
Christianity, you read in the Bible to give the good news. It's
Yeah.
good news. If you
Yeah.
accept the good news, then alhamdulillah. If you don't accept the good news, and also even people may accept the good news in different ways. You know,
Yeah.
how they interpret it might not be exactly the same as you interpret it, but maybe if they get something from it, then alhamdulillah, you get a lot of things from when you see how Muslims practice and some of the spirituality and stuff. You said here that you appreciate some of that, and it
Yeah.
gives you something, even as
Does.
you are very centered and happy as you are as a Christian, but you still benefit from that without having to necessarily convert. And I think people don't. It's kind of like a lack of spiritual maturity that people can't be like that and appreciate that
Yeah.
and respect people. And it saddens me because, I mean, if people are looking for something and they're gravitating towards it, yes, of course, invite and, you know, help them. But if they're not interested, don't push them to be
No.
something that they don't want to be, whether they're vulnerable
Absolutely.
or not. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It also betrays insecurity
Oh yeah, it
in
does.
your own faith. If you are feeling insecure, unless you see yourself as superior to others. And the prophet, peace be upon him, in his last sermon was very clear. There should be no superiority
Yeah.
of white to non-white and Arab and non-Arab. So religion should eliminate. I believe that one of
I
the
think people
main.
don't realize he was incredibly humble. And
Yeah,
so was Jesus, peace be upon him. Both of them were the most incredibly humble human beings. And
yeah,
of course,
indeed.
anyone who is on a path following either of them, or indeed any of the great messengers that inspired all of the different religions, it instills humility in a person, because when you become God conscious and you recognize that there is a God, and that God is ever present in your life, however you interpret that, whichever religious path you're on, it should instill humility, and it does instill humility in people that really have that experience and are on that path.
Absolutely.
How people can be arrogant and undermining other people and putting them down, it does show spiritual immaturity. I mean, and an insecurity as well. I mean, one of the things I get asked a lot by people from certain diaspora communities here in the UK is, how did I become a Muslim? And they want me to go through all of it. And I can just see there, if when I used to talk about it more, and I'd see them and I'm thinking, why do you want to know so much? It's like, I can understand a bit of curiosity and interest,
Yeah,
but I realized after a while, there's some insecurity on their part. And they're like, they need to hear it from me in order to feel secure in their own faith. And
exactly.
they're surprised when I go places where there are no Muslims and I'm
Yeah.
quite comfortable there. I will even go and visit a synagogue and I'll sit in the service and say, have you become Jewish? Or have you become Christian? Of course not. I'm just visiting. I'm just learning,
Yeah.
I know what I believe. I'm very centered in what I believe. But does that mean I can't have good relations with other people? Does that mean I can't learn about them? It shows spiritual insecurity when people
It
can't go into
does.
those spaces,
It does.
uh, and a tremendous insecurity.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, even now I still get people. They send me videos on, people who've just converted to Islam or people who are having these conversations. It's really, I find it boring. I'll be honest with you. I'm not interested in stuff. I mean, I always say I've covered that. I was there like 25 years ago. I've moved on from that.
Yeah. 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 Well, they are using these conventions, both in Islam and Christianity, to prove their superiority and also to prove a truth they've got copyright on, as it were.
And of course, no
Uh,
one has a copyright on God.
nobody can.
This is the thing. And we're all Abrahamic. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you actually just cross out Christianity, Islam, and, the titles, and just look at what each of the religions is actually teaching. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, probably 95% of the main teachings are the same.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm
Absolutely.
not talking about the way we pray. Obviously, that varies, but that varies from one Christian church to another Christian
Oh,
church, or one
yes.
mosque
Oh,
to
yeah.
another. There are going to be variations. But I'm talking about the core beliefs of Christians, Jews, and Muslims. I mean, they're Abrahamic beliefs.
Yeah.
And yes, there's some shades of difference, but it's not huge. And it actually, one of the things I've tried to get across to some Muslims is, when you go about it in this way, you're actually undermining your own religion, because the things that you're saying about the Christians or about the Jews, you're actually talking about your own religion and you don't realize it,
Yeah.
because we have the same roots. You
Yeah.
cannot say that. If you're a Muslim, you have to respect the Torah. You have to
Yeah.
respect the gospel. You have to respect the previous prophets. You have to respect Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. Okay, we understand him theologically slightly differently, but we
Yeah.
have to respect him. You have
Yeah.
to hold him in the highest regard. And in that, you have to also respect those people who believe in those paths. Otherwise, you're undermining your own faith.
Mm. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, what I learned, it is kindness what matters.
Mm.
unless your religion and your religiosity encourages you to be kind and accepting, what is the point of having such a religion?
And that's
Be
the
it Christian.
central point of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Is uh, Allah is called Ar-Rahum in the
Yeah,
Bible in Hebrew, the
yeah,
most merciful.
yeah,
And also Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, which also mean the most merciful, most kind in Arabic. They're actually from the same root.
yeah.
Because we're all from the same root. The Abrahamic faiths are all from the same root.
With the same
Um,
family, yeah.
yeah, and sadaqah in
Yeah.
Hebrew and Arabic, it's actually the same, literally the same word.
Mm.
And so many things like that, salam and shalom, it's
Yeah,
literally the same word. It's,
absolutely.
yeah, even Allah and Allah,
Yeah.
it's
Same,
literally
same
the
root.
same word,
Same
it's,
root, same root, yeah. And it is so ridiculous when Christians are trying to say that Muslims believe in a different God or the other way around.
mm,
It is ridiculous, absolutely
it is
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
And it's interesting because when I started looking at the Orthodox tradition, I realized that there's even more similarities between Islam and Orthodox Christianity than there is between Islam and other forms of Christianity. Even
mm,
you can, and people who are watching this can look it up on TikTok about how Orthodox Christians, some of them pray literally on prayer mats and bow almost identical to the way Muslims pray.
mm.
And obviously, Orthodoxy comes before Islam, time wise. So
Sure.
that means that Christians were praying that way before Muslims were.
Yeah, yeah,
And
indeed.
also, that form of prayer goes back to the old Jewish temple,
Yeah,
which is why we're told in the Quran that Mary
yeah,
was told by God, go to the place and bow down where the people bow down in prayer. Because that's how they prayed. They
yeah,
probably read the Psalms, they didn't
yeah,
read the Quran, but
yeah,
it's the form of prayer was more or less the same.
absolutely.
And Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, he also prayed the same way. Um, why people want to fight, I don't know. I mean, if we look for the common ground,
Yeah,
there's far more of it than there is that would cause us to fight with each other. And there's no space for superiority in that because
no.
only God is superior. If we
Yeah.
actually start from that perspective, then we'll be in a much better place.
It is also a bit hilarious that all three of us, all three religions, insist that God is ineffable,
Mm,
and then we insist on various peculiarities, and we are arguing about peculiarities
mm,
of our understanding about God. So I
mm.
think it is very important that we not only profess our essential theological views, but also practice it. We let
Mm.
God be God, um, letting Him to be God, and not speaking on His behalf when we are not authorized to do so, by judging others, by persecuting others for their beliefs and traditions.
Judge not, lest ye be judged.
Yeah,
And people
indeed.
don't remember the last part of that quote by Jesus, peace be upon him, do they? And you'll be judged in the measure to which you judged others. And the Prophet Muhammad said the same thing, that you must be merciful to other people, and God will be merciful to you in the same measure to which you're merciful to other people. It's literally in
Yeah,
the hadith. It's literally the same meaning.
it is. Yeah,
Um, and people, I mean, whatever the theology varies, but in terms of like how we should live, how we should be, just be that, and then there's
yeah,
no issue.
yeah, indeed.
Um,
Indeed, indeed. Yeah,
Another name of God, of course, that's shared in the Bible and in Islam is Al Shalom and
yeah.
Al Salam.
Al-Salam. Yeah,
Yeah, the God of peace.
yeah.
It's maybe have more peace and more blessings to your Peace Cathedral and your work that you've done, which is alhamdulillah, and your community. May Allah bless your community and may it
Thank
go
you.
from strength to strength.
Thank you. Your blessings and our prayers will be highly appreciated. Thank you very
And
much
I do
indeed.
hope I can join you at some point and visit. That would be a real honor to do that.
honor will be all ours, and I'll be looking forward to welcoming you in Tbilisi as soon as possible.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Thank you very
If
much.
you could leave one message for future generations or for young people today, religious or otherwise, what would it be?
Be free to love, accept, and celebrate diversity.
Oh, that's beautiful. Bishop Malkhaz, thank you so much for your time, your
Thank you.
wisdom, and your generosity this evening. It has truly been fascinating and a deeply thoughtful conversation. Thank you as well to everyone who has joined us, whether from the UK or Georgia or around the world, in this episode of In Conversation. Please do like, share, subscribe, and help support thoughtful conversations that build understanding rather than division. Until next time, peace and blessings be with you all. Good night. Where's my mouse?